As we go through life, we will always have stress. As long as there's stress, there's life, ultimately. If you're alive, there's stress. But realize as long as there's life, there's also hope. As we put together these workshops, my hope and prayer is that you can start to look at yourself not with a critical eye, but a gentle and loving eye, but also a critical assessment of what you do on a regular basis. If we are able to evaluate ourselves on a regular basis, we start to realize that there's improvements we can all make, every one of us. They might be as simple as how you sit, how you stand, how you pick things up. We want to start there for sure. They might be on the next level of what you put in your body, the foods and drinks that we put in our bodies, the airs we breathe, the way we sleep. On the deepest level, that's what the fourth Tuesday of every month is going to be. At the deepest level, it's our thoughts. Our thoughts are things. And what we think about and think about is what we bring about. Our thoughts become things. And as we go through tonight's workshop, I feel like it's very wise for you to just start to take a step back, act like you're looking, at your own life, but from afar. You hover over top, and you just take a look. There may be areas that you're doing really, really well. There may be areas where your thinking is stinking thinking, and we all have that. We all live on a continuum of good energy and bad energy, of growth and vitality and hope and support and fear and anger and worry and resentment and selfishness. There's two continuums. We're always living inside of this continuum. Tonight, we're going to specifically look at a very two areas on that continuum that are worry and hope. And I think the best way to start this off is a story. I want to share this story because I think it can illustrate exactly how worry in the mind can produce pathology or trouble in the body. And I think it will help to hit home in a lot of little ways. So I'm going to read this story. If you bear with me, I'm going to read this right out of the book. Remember that this book, as we go through hold on one second. I better unblur. I don't know why my background's blurred. There we go. We're going to go through this book. Rays of the Dawn. Don't buy it on Amazon. Probably get it from me. It's a lot less expensive here. I have to order them directly from the company. The doctor who makes these has his own institute. It's called am I blanking all of a sudden? But that institute is the Concept Therapy Institute, and they sell these a lot lesser price than on Amazon. But this health handbook, if followed and obeyed, will help your body to live well. So we're going to read this story, but I want you to think about the laws that govern our body and our minds as we look and listen to this story. I want to talk a story about John and Sue. They're a couple in moderate circumstances who wish to enjoy the comforts and conveniences of middle income life. They decide to purchase a home and furniture, but not having sufficient cash to buy these items, they use their credit. They make the purchases, mortgaging their future, and in debt themselves to creditors for years. The plan works very well over a year. Then John's company suffers a downturn, and he's laid off. He brings to worry. Sue, who is still working, knows that without both incomes, they cannot meet their monthly obligations. She begins to fret and worry. Her mind is being disturbed by this worry, and soon her whole system becomes involved. Sue loses her appetite. Her sleep is broken, and she feels depressed and out of sorts. A spirit of gloom sets over the household. We've been there, all of us. John and Sue decide that they must do something, so they try to borrow some money from the bank. Conditions have changed things, and the bank refuses the loan. Money seems so difficult to raise. They go from place to place and finally are convinced that they cannot get the money. Worry continues. Growing in its intensity, there seems no way out. The collectors call again and again. They threaten to repossess the house, the car, the furniture. John immediately creates a mental picture of the furniture being moved out. He wonders what the neighbors will say. and this increases his worry. His pride is now involved. He sits and broods all day. Finally, he becomes physically ill. He has already been mentally ill, in parentheses. His stomach is all out of order and will not retain food. He is nervous and irritable. Sue comes home and finds John quite ill. She urges him to see a doctor, and he follows her advice. He consults a medical doctor, a chiropractor, and a Christian Science practitioner. Each in turn treats John's physical symptoms without any inquiry into the mental cause of his trouble. John receives some relief from his illness, but the worry that originally made him ill is still there. John continues his quest for a doctor who can successfully cure his malady. The type of doctor John needs may be difficult to find. It is the same type that the entire world needs. One whose treatment coordinates the body and the mind and the soul, so that all three work together in harmony. To cure John, the doctor must find the real cause, worry, and eliminate it from John's mind, thereby restoring the mind to normal. Then the doctor must treat John's body for the physical conditions that the mind caused. When all this has been accomplished, John will be well. This story illustrates the extent to which worry can affect us. There's a statement. Worry is responsible for more disease than all the germs that exist on the face of the earth. High blood pressure, anxiety, heart failure, sleep, everyone suffers from it. It's also been called a foolish pastime, worry. But how do we stop it? Worry seems a natural part of life, but it is unnatural. We have come into a world which lives on a lot of false truths. If we can obey the laws of simplicity and harmony, we can demonstrate a much better state of mind than worry does. Hope, on the other hand, has been born into us by the fact that we are here. The miracle of what it took just for us to become who we are, to be alive, is amazing. There's always hope to understand that we are still here. We are alive, that we've survived. Our bodies really can root back into our ancestralness to know that we survived to be here. Worry trumps a lot of that. Worry trumps a lot of that. That negative thinking causes real disease. And worry is an enemy, ultimately an enemy that must be eliminated. This destructive state of mind manifests in the form of mental distress. It's concerning of the circumstances someone may be in, the problems that may arise, conditions or situations, and ultimately can start to add more and more mental stress to our bodies. Worry leads to more apprehension and ultimately fear, like we talked about last week, anxiety, and regret, even dread. Despair is one of the worst areas we can get to. But we have to start to change how our brain and our body are working toward worry as our primary mode of understanding and dealing with the world. The more we worry, the less we're able to use our intellect. I don't know if anyone's had the circumstance, but if you've been so stressed, it's like you can't even remember your own name or what you had for lunch. You might not be able to simply do a math problem that may take 2 steps. Our brain's frontal area of thinking and planning is completely shut down the more fight or flight we're in, the more worry we have. We live in our reptilian brain, which is like our brain stem, very primitive part of our brain. We share that type of a brain with almost all animals and reptiles. It's a fun, interesting fact that animals themselves do not suffer. Humans suffer. We have the mental ability to ask why. What happened? What's wrong? Why is this going on? Animals don't. They just react. Or animals might have pain, but they do not suffer. Our brain's tendency to take this pathway will be the ultimate push toward our body's healing or not. To look at these things a little bit side by side, um, I want to go to something here. Let me see if I can find it for you guys. Ultimately, we do need to figure out how to fight fear. How do we stop worry and fear? Because they ultimately lead us down a road of depression and disorder in our bodies. Ultimately, we must adapt or adjust in our life to the stressors that are there. There are some simple ways to kind of start to think about this. So these are kind of our 4 steps that we need to start to defend against worry and realize that there's always hope. Your body wants to give you hope, but if your mind is stopping your body's soul's need to give you that hope, this is why we want to look at this. So the first thing we need to find out and ask ourselves is the cause of our worry. I've been trained in a lot of communication styles, a lot of, I'd say it, life coaching and skills to grow and improve myself. And one thing that has always come up is that usually it's never the first thing we tell ourselves. Worry may come up right away and just say, oh, I'm so worried I might be late. I'm so worried this might happen. But those worries are probably just at the surface. We need to continue to dig deeper, go layers deep. Well, why are you worried if you're late? What's that going to do? Well, I might be ashamed. I'll be embarrassed. Well, why is that a big deal for you? Why do you think someone would be? Why you're going to be embarrassed that you're late? Well, I don't want to look bad in front of others. I'm trying to keep up a certain, ideal. We have a statement I say a lot around here that perfection is the enemy of success. If we want to have a successful life and just be in peace and harmony and happiness, ultimately, perfection and the trying to achieve that will cause a lot of worry and anger, anxiety, and despair. This is a good point to think about this point I talked about 4 weeks ago, but I'm going to bring it up again. There was a study done with water. And what the doctor would do is he would freeze the crystals of the water and he'd look at them under a microscope. If he got the water from a good, healthy source, the crystals formed really well. If he got it, probably tapped water or reprocessed water or water from the sewer, it had very poor crystal formation. So ultimately, the energies that form these crystals were different in each type of water. He took it a step further. He said, I wonder if I expose the water to certain vibration. So he would play different types of music and then look at the crystal formation. Angry, aggressive music caused crystal formation that was abnormal. Classical, smooth, mellow music caused very good crystal formation. He took it one step further. He decided to say words to the crystals. He would say love and peace and patience and kindness, and the crystals formed very well. He then would yell. He would have angry words. He would cuss at the water. The water formed abnormal crystal formation. If this wasn't enough, he decided to take it one step further. And he said, I'll just think the emotions. And the water changed based on the negative or positive energy. My point here is this, that our thoughts and our minds cause more disease than all the germs on this planet. And they're probably the hardest to change. They're probably the hardest things to change. Why? Your brain has certain pathways. When a stimulus happens, your brain has pathways that are like I think it's what's that called? The track that when they do the luge and this bobsled. It's kind of like that smooth of ice in your brain. That pathway is so quick that you just tip that bobsled over the edge and it's gone. Before you even thought consciously that maybe I can have a different reaction today. That bobsled is zooming right down the hill. It's on that super thick ice. If you want to change where that bobsled ends up, and you want to change the pathway that you can take, you're going to have to pick that bobsled up and move it yourself. And then you're going to probably have to push it on a new path until you grind away and makes that path smooth enough that you can take. And it takes a lot of effort. Our minds are geared toward pleasure, pain, ultimately, pleasure and pain. When we use these as motivators, we're typically down a road that isn't going to lead us to ultimate happiness. But most people end up making decisions that they need to make changes because there's two reasons. And mostly it's the last reason. The first reason is you're inspired. Something inspires you to make a change. I'm here tonight because I want to inspire my patients and you guys to make changes, because ultimately the changes you make, the small little deviations that you try to make in your life, start to affect the people around you. If those people see those changes, then they might start to make changes and affect the people around them. And I believe our community, our state, our world can be a different place if we're all working at trying to improve from the inside out, not the outside in. When we're not happy, we are going to look for everything from the outside to give us some pleasure, short term. It usually leads to long-term misery. Worry and avoiding situations, and not really looking at the process, maybe a short-term deviation from uncomfortableness or pain, but ultimately leads to more dysfunction. The other reason most people do things is desperation. We don't want you to be desperate. We want you to start now. We want you to start thinking about this now. So number one, ask questions. What's causing this worry? Why am I so worried? Well, the news said, there's people have accidents, planes crash, cars get in accidents. Oh, see, people can have house fires. They can all happen. And you can't change them. You can make some prudent steps. There's nothing wrong with being prudent. But if it gets so aggressive that all you're doing is being prudent because of sheer worry, you've changed the chemistry in your body to a point where it won't matter how well you try to avoid problems. They will show up based on the energies you put out there. So let's think about number two. We need to then eliminate worry through an intelligent action. Action dissolves fear. Action dissolves fear. If we take intelligent actions and take logical steps to try to to mitigate this worry, we'll start to realize, and our brains will start to realize, that there was nothing to fear but fear itself. If it's not within our power to intelligently eliminate worry, if we're in a state that's so stressful, it's going to be hard to intelligently work through this. I'm going to make sure that Victoria is going to share a link. Lisa Wood used to work here. She is on her own right now, has a wellness counseling business, and she's also an art therapist. If you aren't able to intelligently eliminate this worry, then we need to find people to help us start to decrease the stressors in our brain and work toward looking at how we accept the situation. If you're able to, you can do this on your own. Realize that it's one you don't have control over, and refuse to worry. So why are you worried? Try to eliminate worry through intelligent action. If the intelligent action is not eliminating the worry, then we are to realize that we have no control over that, and we are to refuse to worry. The situation is one that we have to accept. In many biblical teachings, there's a whole statement of surrender. Where we are right now is where we need to be. And our bodies are well tuned and well able to do everything we need. But worry stifles our bodies. Worry stops our bodies from producing the chemicals, the physical abilities, the happiness that we want. And many other emotions do as well. But tonight's about worry. We're going to go through as many as we can this year. We're going to go through as many as I have. But negative thinking and worry cause ill health. Ill health, as you kind of learned from the story, causes more worry. More worry is now more ill health. This is a bitter cycle that does not stop unless we stop it. We have to start here. If this created it, This changes it. Again, we shared Lisa's information. If you want help from one of the nicest, most kind, sensitive, supportive people in the world, I use her. My team actually has work with her. She's wonderful. But sometimes we need to really step out of our box, get uncomfortable, and take an action. Maybe the action's gone, Lisa. Maybe the action's buying the brain tap that we talked about 2 weeks ago. Our subconscious brain, I'm alluding to our subconscious as that bobsled track. Our subconscious goes flying down that track. It goes so fast that you wouldn't imagine how fast that goes. Your conscious brain, it goes about as fast as you can drive a nice sports car, maybe 150 miles an hour. Your subconscious, 1,000 times faster than that. We have to start to break our subconscious. The brain tap is great. I don't know, Victoria, if you could share the brain tap link. That's our personal link. If not, don't worry. But you guys, if you want information, come to us. I think it's on our website, Victoria, if you do see it. But that will give you some information on what kind of technology there is to listen. And if you want to rent from us headsets that can start to retrain your brain with lights and sound and really get past that trap door, get into your subconscious and rewrite that path. But we have to do something. We have to do something. I'm going to end with this. Maybe. Yeah, I think I'll just end with this. Now, have you ever heard this story? But I think it's somewhat fitting. This story dates back to the Cherokee Indians from like North Carolina. And it's a grandfather. He's talking to his grandson. And he said that there's a battle in your life, 2 wolves, a good one and a bad wolf. That bad wolf is anger, hatred, greed, lies, arrogance, and ego. The good wolf is love and peace, generosity, kindness, joy, faith, hope, and humility. The grandson sits there for a moment thinking, well, which one wins, Grandpa? The grandfather says, it's the one you feed. We have a choice every day we wake up and throughout the day to decide how we're going to feed our minds. Are we going to feed it like we would a good wolf? Or are we going to feed it like the bad wolf? Every day is a new day. We can start feeding the good wolf. Society is going to get us in fear and worry. If we go right to our phones first thing in the morning, if we don't slow down first thing in the morning, if we don't journal, say some gratitudes, exercise our bodies before we get to our phones and our work and all the stressors of the day, then we're probably going to be feeding the bad wolf a lot quicker than we want. You have to choose every moment. No matter how much you may feed the good wolf, the bad wolf is always still there. He never dies. And I'm going to leave with this kind of quote. This is from Martha Washington. I choose to have a cheerful heart. You need to choose from your heart to make these changes. You can't just do it because I said so. If we listen with our minds, you're only going to get so far. You've got to really know it in your heart that you want to make these changes. But Martha Washington decides to live her life with a cheerful heart. Your happiness or your misery are dependent upon your disposition, not our circumstances. This is a lot to take in, but know there's hope. As long as there's life, there is hope.